Hey, video diary. So today I'm probably going to transgress some people's sense of propriety because I'm going to talk about God and I'm going to talk about faith and what those words mean to me in the context of my son's death and how, particularly during the days and weeks surrounding his death, that when I heard references to God or faith, how I reacted to those things in the context of that altered state that I was in, because I was truly in. I call it the clarity of grief. You know, when when I don't know what it's like for anybody else. I only know my own experience, but I can tell you that when he died, all the veneer of our culture just wiped away. And I was able to feel a humanity that extended itself to our origins and before, to our animals. You know, I felt the pain of bears, deers, fish. You know, it's anything that can feel loss or pain. I felt connected to, and it was that sentience or that love that we have for one another that I really zeroed in on as as the only true thing in all of this. And whenever anybody spoke about God in let's face it, we're talking about the mixed up, scrambled Judeo-Christian variety that we have here in America, or shall I say varieties that we have here in America, that are, you know, kind of up to the individual to sort of decide what God is for them. You know, there's no government orthodoxy in America per se. So we have all these people interpreting what they consider to be the highest order of contemplation or understanding with something they think is the highest thing. But they're just making it up for themselves. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think we all need to find some way in which we can sit with our positions individualistically. But I'm just, I'm amazed at what people will allow themselves to believe. Do you really believe that a virgin got pregnant? I mean, you really need to, before you just say yes, because I grew up, I was indoctrinated with Christianity. Nobody looks under the hood. And when you do, you're out of it because it's foolish. But it's more than that. It trivializes life and real spirituality. That's what religion does. It trivializes it. It freezes it into a still, thing where they say it's this, it's Jesus, or it's Muhammad, or it's Hinduism. I leave Buddhism out of it because my understanding of Buddhism is that of a psychological system, right? It's a way of taking responsibility for yourself and realize, even the Siddhartha said, I don't know why my methodology works. It works for me. Try it. If it works for you, then it's worked for two people. That was his answer. And Buddha offered four noble truths. That's what they called them, and an eightfold path, which is essentially a how to live well guide. That's really all it is. Pardon me. But other things posit supernatural explanations, post hoc reasoning. Christians were not supposed to go beyond even their first generation, and now you've gone into 2,000 years old and you want to use that as some credit. It's actually a discredit. But I don't want to get into the weeds of this particular religions. I've studied religions for years. I enjoy that. I really do. I'm fascinated by it. I'm also enraged when I see very intelligent people take on these mythologies as facts instead of as guides. I think there's a lot of guiding that could be, achieved. I think under all the Judaic stories are Sumerian stories. I do think there is a reason to live and a connection between all of us. I do not feel, as a person who doesn't buy into things that are not don't have any proof. Islam does not have any proof. No one knows. Christianity doesn't have any proof. Outside of the Gospels, there's no, the historical things that were said about it were added later. Tacitus never wrote those things about Jesus contemporaneously being there. There's no record in the Romans court system about what supposedly happened there. So, I mean, really, your whole life you're going to tether yourself to this stuff, none of which is needed for a moral life. In fact, I would even say that if you behave morally because it is a dictate of your religion, you're not being moral. You're being obedient. And true morality is love for living, is love for everything. It's love for everything that is expressed by this universe. I'm being very, very general, because it gets into cloudy waters when you start to go into, well, should I love murderers? Should you love Hitler? Should you love Osama bin Laden? Obama? I'm amazed at how many people hate Obama. Here in New York City, we don't hate Obama. So when I encountered that rabid hate of Obama, that's not very Christian, But I not to throw that back, but the point I'm making is all these religions, the fact that all these religions exist, prove that humans want that kind of thing. But they don't prove that that kind of thing has some sort of ground of its own. So when I'm listening to the funeral today of Barbara Bush and hearing everybody, ultimately the last thing that they're going to write is how God and fill in the blanks. Because it's the last thing that, they want to say on that matter. It sort of ends the conversation because it's like saying, and Bugs Bunny did this or Mickey Mouse did this. It's saying nothing because we have no way to back that up, to prove it, to experience it. None. And, apart from some deep mythologies, that are teaching us some lessons in all of these stories, they've all been scrambled. They've all been cut up and scrambled and used for political gains along the way. And when I heard people talk about God and God's plan and healing and and not healing, but things that had to do with God, and it's God knows, and it's. I tell you what, my nostrils filled with shit, because it's just like I want to scream at people, release yourself from that nonsense. That was like in my fiber, all through me. I would feel that, and it was a violation. It's a violation of real connection, real spirituality, which does not hinge upon a parental dictate of you must love me and you must obey. I think real spirituality is us all understanding that there's no authority over us beyond ourselves. And by which I mean that we're not the end all of everything, we're part of everything. So a lot of the pollution and stuff like that you see in the world comes from scripture in the Bible that said these things are here for you to use. People have used that to justify pollution or using the land or using the thing. It's a bad idea. And yeah. So just in terms of my grieving, the knowledge that I got knocked into, it was like a billiard ball, and I got knocked. That sense of what I learned from this, or what came out of me, was the most authentic experience of my spirit, my soul, my life force. But it's just a connection. It just went down. It just went down and up. Like, wow, I'm connected to all of this. That the drama that every bug is going through, I'm going to go through. So, religions to me are human prejudicial, putting yourself in a supreme position to try to figure out how not to be so freaked out and afraid of death. And death is one thing when we're living in lives like this. You get to die in a nice hospital with some people, taking care of you and combing your hair. But imagine what death was like, 100, 200, 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago. And to the idiots that think the world is only 6,000 years old, look at Göbekli Tepe. They've already dated that to 12,000 years ago. So, the point I'm making is, in the past, 50,000 years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, people were probably, everything is terrified. Everything is terrified. National Geographic did this thing where this woman who was tracking humans' first migrations, or early migrations from Africa over into Yemen, decided to just say, what is it like overnight in this area? Pitched her tent, put out a tape recorder or a camera, and let it run all night long. These people did not sleep, because between all the death, the hunting, the killing, the screaming of animals, the skittling back and forth, it's like at nighttime when we're, it's a horror fest of eating other things out there. And we're just like in our bubbles, disconnected from that. Not that I think I want to go back there, but I don't want to be disconnected from understanding that that's the cycle. It's the Lion King, unfortunately, without a God. And you don't need a God. You are God. You are Brahman. I would ascribe to that the Atman is Brahman, that we individually are a piece of the most divine thing. And we're not a piece, we're an extension. You know what I'm saying? We walk around, but we're not disconnected. You wouldn't last a day without water, without food, without structures. So people throw this thing out all the time. They throw it out about OD deaths. God needed another angel or whatever the shit. Get rid of that. That's my advice to the world. Apostatize. Be spiritual. Study religions. You know, inside of them, really, really good things. And that conversation is out there now. You don't have to feel alone or that there's no reason or purpose. Free yourself.